8:56 exactly, and we welcome to the show Chairperson of the Black Women's Caucus, and that's you, Keitumetse, Fatimata Moutloatse. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Do forgive me if I've mispronounced. Good morning. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you to all your viewers, listeners.
Okay, a very big discussion happening today. It is at hashtag sentence shutdown commemorative dialogue. And I know it's going to touch on important issues regarding gender-based violence, femicide, and also importantly, greater participation and accountability from the private sector and businesses. Talk to us more about this very important event.
Thank you. Today marks 2 years since the historic march to the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, where we saw thousands of women and allies taking to the streets of Johannesburg, demanding that private sector fund the fight. And many people are still a bit confused to say, why do we need private sector to fund the fight? Because the reality of the matter is that South Africa has adopted the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide in 2020. In order to fully operationalize the National Strategic Plan, we need money. We also need money to ensure that the women's and feminist movements, organizations in our communities that are committed to addressing a lot of the social ills have access to funding. So today, we come together, we reflect on the progress made over the past 2 years. We also critique where critique is needed to see how then do we amplify the call for funding the fight, but also how do we find and strengthen cross-sectoral relationships to addressing the issue of gender-based violence and femicide in South Africa.
Has much changed since the march 2 years ago, very especially for Black women?
Oh, I mean, it's very difficult to say because on the one end, we see the adoption of the National Strategic Plan, which is one of the central demands made during the total shutdown in 2018. But at the same time, as we celebrate and welcome, the adoption of the National Strategic Plan, we also are faced with cases such as Noselo, who was tragically killed by her partner. So we are seeing some of the policy changes, that are taking place, but that is failing to translate into the everyday realities of women, queer people, children in South Africa. And I think it really calls for us to understand a little bit more about what the fight entails, right? Is it good enough to say we've got a fund? Is it good enough to say we have an NSP, but it's not changing the livelihoods of the people of this country? It's really where the conversation seeks to go today.
Who are the participants on today's commemorative dialogue, and how do the rest of South African women come on board, become aware of this movement, and in their own small way start making a difference? And what is that difference that you want to see?
Definitely. I mean, firstly, to answer your questions, the theme of today's engagement is to strengthen partnerships to addressing gender-based violence. So we've got Ms. Moutloatse from the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. We've got Dr. Namane Mahau, who is also a board member of the GBV Response One Fund. We've got Advocate Brenda Matumise Pajibo, who is the founder of Wife for Africa, but also the co-chair of the interim structure, which was very pivotal in the formulation of the National Strategic Plan. We've also got Councillor Matiso, who's now the current MMC of Finance in the city of Johannesburg. We've got Lindel Wangumano, who is a women's program lead, Action Aid South Africa. So we've really tried to bring different voices into the room, right? For those who are interested in tuning into the conversation, we will be live streaming on YouTube and our Facebook page. The Black Women Caucus, go onto our social media pages. But most importantly, you ask, how do we get involved, right? How do we actively change what's happening in our communities? And I always, whenever I'm confronted with this question, I always say that gender-based violence is so deeply embedded in our social, in our social relations, how we engage with each other. We know the home, the family plays an important role in driving a lot of the behavior we see in society. We are saying that before you even think of marching and shutting down the streets, how about we start addressing the people in our communities, in our homes, in our families, right? Because we must also, part of addressing gender-based violence must also speak to restorative justice. How do we restore society as a whole, right? I don't think anybody wants to see the breakdown of society, and so even our interventions even our interventions in the form of accountability must be rooted in the principles of restorative justice.
Okay.
To bring restoration into our community.
So sorry, but I'm going to have to leave it there. We've run out of time. Thank you indeed for being with us on the show. Chairperson of the Black Women's Caucus, and that was Keitumetse Fatimata Moutloatse.
A social movie robbery suspect who was